Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere in the state today. No storms at all going on, really. We've got a big mass of moisture here coming into the Bering Sea, sliding on down across the Percy Island areas, and then a break here over the Gulf of Alaska, and a band of moisture sending some light rain into the northern southeast coast. But as you can see on farther down to the south, looks like some sunshine breaking out down there around the southern areas, Annette, Ketchikan, Metlakatla, on into Dixon Entrance. So definitely the wetter conditions up to the north, but not all that wet. The rain on the light side, and also some light rain today along the North Gulf Coast, and scattered showers in over the interior, mostly cloudy skies. Several weak troughs bringing some surges of moisture from southwest to northeast here, as you can see evidence of the main track of the cloudiness is on up to the northeast. Otherwise, some clearing, pretty nice day up along the Arctic coast. A lot of clear skies reported in from Wainwright, Barrow eastward, all the way over to Kaktovik. Started a little foggy conditions earlier on, but reporting clear skies, good visibility. Definitely VFR up there for the north slope. A few more clouds here back toward the west, and then all the moisture in the Bering Sea. Here you can see areas of snow, light snow from St. Lawrence Island up into the Seward Peninsula areas, and then to the northwest, Noatak Valley, Selawik Valley areas, light snow up in those locations. Rainfall amounts liquid, generally a few hundredths of an inch. Koyukuk Airport, though, had about 1.5 inches, which, if that fell as snow, would be about 1 to 2 inches of snow. Otherwise, amounts are lighter than that in most areas. Weak trough right through here, enhancing the showers down over the northeast Bristol Bay, southern Kuskokwim Valley area, and then some scattered rain and snow showers shifting up in across south central Alaska today. And also for the North Gulf Coast, since midnight, Seward picked up about 0.2 of an inch of precipitation, while Cordova had about 1/3 of an inch, actually just under 1/2 an inch at Cordova. Again, that's since midnight last night. Dry conditions, though, up over the upper Yukon valleys, maybe a few isolated showers over the mountains there north of the Alaska Range, but nothing heavy at all. And a trough here swinging eastward, spreading gusty winds and precipitation into the Pribilof Islands, and mostly just clouds and breezy conditions over the central eastern Aleutians. And then out there to the west, the next system just making it onto the chart. This area of rainfall brought about around 1/4 of an inch of rain to Juneau. Gustavus had about 0.15 of an inch. By contrast, just 0.03 of an inch falling over at Sitka. And then Dry Bay had about 1/4 of an inch, much less over toward Yakutat, if anything at all. And then looking at ahead for tonight, this very weak boundary, frontal boundary, just more or less dropped it off the chart here. Still some lingering moisture up to the north. No change really down to the south. Variable clouds, maybe a few more clouds that you saw today over those southern areas. And out here to the west, still have a weak trough keeping a shower threat in over south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, right up into the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. This low center tracking eastward there. That'll keep a swath of snow in over the southwest interior. Not a lot of accumulation expected. Could see maybe 1 to 2 inches at the most there in some areas. Mountainous terrain, maybe a tad more, but generally nothing all that significant. Scattered snow showers out in advance of that in that south-southeasterly flow all the way up to the southern slopes of the Western Brooks Range there. And then behind that, ridging, breaking conditions shifting in toward the Pribilof Islands tonight and toward the eastern Aleutian areas. And then that next system driving eastward there brings gusty winds, probably some gale force winds in advance of the front with rain sliding into the Adak area late tonight by early tomorrow morning with that low center at about 981 millibars. And then going into tomorrow, trough swinging in, cloudy skies, and at least a shot of moisture coming across south central Alaska from Kodiak Island all the way up into Prince William Sound during the day tomorrow as this comes through, depending on rain or snow, depending on your elevation, your latitude, and the time of day, about sums it up there as far as what type of precipitation we'll see here. But that should cut off right at the Alaska Range there barely even making it up to that point. And so the Tanana Valley looks pretty good. Partly sunny skies, dry conditions, light winds, 40-mile country, same thing. North Waytoke on up to Eagle. Up there toward Old Crow, could be a few lingering showers there, but the North Slope, a day much like today coming up there, as well as the Arctic coast. And then back to the west, you get into the snow shower chances, or rain and snow showers here with this weak trough up over the northwest. That brings a pretty widespread area of light precipitation to that region down into the Yukon Delta, and then more moisture with that low center pushing eastward in the front now, bringing the gusty winds and rain into the Fox Islands, eventually toward the Alaska Peninsula and the Pribilof Islands. That'll be followed by dry conditions, but pretty brisk westerly or west-southwesterly winds there on the south side of that low center, but it doesn't look like shower activity will be too much at all. In fact, could see some clearing with that as well. So moving on to the first day of the weekend, Saturday, shaping up like this. That system tracks up to the northeast here, so another swath of snow with that coming in from about the Brooks Range on the southern slope southward through the western interior valleys here, right on down the Yukon, into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, drying out back to the west in the afternoon. In fact, look for some sunshine to break out Saturday afternoon for St. Lawrence Island with just a few snow showers up there over the Chukchi Sea. Very minor break right through here, and then next system driving eastward across the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutian, so more wind and rain coming in with that, and even milder temperatures with this system than this its predecessor there. So definitely all in the form of rain there, even the southwest Bering in toward the Fox Islands by the afternoon. And it looks like some of this moisture will track eastward, bring a chance of showers to the north coast of the Panhandle during the midday to afternoon hours from Yakutat, possibly all the way down to Port Alexander. Eastern areas, southeastern part of the Panhandle should remain dry, as well as areas north of the Alaska Range there. So the Tanana Valley dry, maybe some sunshine, especially over toward Eagle. North Slope, same thing, pretty good next couple of days coming up there, but more precipitation coming through south central Alaska once again. And then it looks like once that moves off, temporary break comes in for Saturday night, and then this will begin to roll on in on Sunday and into Monday across southern Alaska. For temperatures, lows tonight, mostly 15 to 20 there for the eastern Brooks Range on up to the Arctic coast, milder in the west there with temperatures in the upper 20s over the northwest coast, lower 30s here through the western interior, all the way down to mid 30s, Bristol Bay, Pribilofs, also for the Alaska Peninsula, upper 30s for just about all of the Aleutians, and 35 to 40 for southern Alaska here, as well as the Panhandle, but down south, even milder with lows in the mid 40s. Highs for tomorrow with those popping up to possibly near 60 there for the southern southeast coast. Upper 40s though in the north, 40s southern Alaska, Tanana Valley, lower 50s, and near 50 for the Yukon Flats in some areas up there for the in the Yukon, especially around Fort Yukon. And then from the Brooks Range, mid-30s fall into the upper 20s there for the Arctic coast, but mid-30s back to the west, upper 30s for Kotzebue, and near 40 here over the southwest interior, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas, but cooler out toward the coast, mid-40s for the Aleutians. And then the low temperatures for Saturday morning, missing a few numbers here, but not too much different from what you'll see tomorrow morning. Got lower to mid-teens for the Arctic coast once again, and into the North Slope areas with mid-20s for the Copper River Basin. And then the green shaded area here, not too bad, mostly above freezing, lower to mid-30s to mid to upper 30s now for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. And the southeast coast, not too bad, anywhere from 35 to 45 above for your low temperatures. And then the highs for the afternoon, we've got Tanana Valley there, mostly into the lower, or call it 50 to 55-ish here from Tanana Valley up into the Yukon Flats. Also along the southeast coast, got some 50s to near 60-degree readings showing up there, and upper 40s out over the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay, and upper 40s to near 50 for the Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather graphics here, we've got a lot of IFR, pretty good swath from the Bering Strait, eastern St. Lawrence Island, right on down southwest coast, the deltas into Bristol Bay. Marginal VFR back to the west, another batch of IFR with the next system coming in to the southwest bearing, sliding into AKwx tomorrow morning. Otherwise, VFR for the Panhandle. That'll continue into the afternoon. Good VFR here for the southeast coast, everywhere north of the Alaska Range here, central interior eastward. Maybe a little bit of marginal VFR, southern slopes of the Brooks Range. Back into VFR for the North Slope and Arctic coast. IFR more widespread here over the northern north central Bering Sea, but not quite to the coastline now, and then southward across the eastern Aleutians. And for Saturday morning, we've got IFR back onto the coast and inland again, especially down here to the south, right up to the Alaska Range, central Alaska Range, possibly just to the east there, maybe reaching western Cook Inlet, but otherwise marginal VFR mostly for Cook Inlet, Kodiak Island, Kenai Peninsula areas. Seeing VFR north of the Alaska Range there, 40-mile country, good VFR through this area. Back into marginal VFR, or the Wrangell Mountains, portions of the Copper River Basin, North Gulf Coast, and hugging the central coast of the Panhandle, otherwise VFR there, with IFR up along the Arctic coast now through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, into the northern Bering, and then back out here to the southwest, IFR reappearing. And that becomes pretty widespread in the afternoon, looking for IFR to be anywhere, possible anywhere here over the Bering Sea and much of the Aleutians, and right up to the southwest coast, Bristol Bay, another area of IFR, widespread IFR here up over the northwest part of the state, and along the Arctic coast and the North Slope, staying VFR though on the north side of the Alaska Range, central eastern range, northward there into the Yukon Flats, Copper River Basin, pretty marginal. IFR here, eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, there are some upsloping conditions. East side of Kodiak, IFR, Kenai Peninsula on the coast, and marginal for Prince William Sound. Now some marginal VFR making a little headway into the northern central southeast coast, but staying VFR on down to the south to Dixon Entrance. And for the passes tomorrow for Friday, Anaktuvuk and Anigan, both occasionally marginal, or mostly marginal. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR for those passes, lowest conditions eastern entrances, and rainy, same forecast, IFR most of the day with the lowest conditions on the eastern approach. Windy, marginal VFR in the southern entrance, otherwise not too bad. VFR through the pass, especially into the Tanana Valley. And for Isabel, marginal VFR. And for Mentasta, though, optimistically be a VFR day, although it'll be varying amounts of cloudiness, but also be above that marginal threshold. And for Tanita, occasionally marginal tomorrow. And for Portage, looks pretty marginal, possible IFR on eastern entrance. Then for Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels showing warmer out here to the west over the southwest Bering and the western Aleutians, 10,000 feet there up over the area. And cooler at the surface here right along the North Gulf Coast early tomorrow morning. A couple of pockets, 2,000 feet up over the north central interior and the Arctic coast. And then another pretty good gradient here across this Panhandle, 2,000 feet near Juneau, southern Lynn Canal to 10,000 feet across the Queen Charlotte's. And right in this area is a good southwest jet that be blowing across the Panhandle. And looking at the icing possibilities, none expected here for the southeast coast. Could be some areas of icing for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, another widespread area here above about 3,000 feet, mostly isolated moderate in these zones with better chance of seeing some widespread moderate here from the Pribilof southward. With this next batch, it'll be spreading east-northeastward throughout the day from the western Bering and Aleutians to about this position mid to late afternoon hours. And for the jet stream here, 33,000 foot wind flow showing southwest jet right into the Panhandle there, 130 knots following that thermal gradient. And upper level low here just west of St. Lawrence Islands, we got southerlies at about 50 knots through the western interior, and then northwest 70 knots out over the far western Aleutians, otherwise the main jet well to the south of that area. 9,000 foot winds, westerly here into the Panhandle, 20 to 25 knots. Southerlies, winds increase here back to the west, especially to the northwest, right through here, 30 to as high as 40 knots out of the south, up over the Kobuk Valley, and 25 knots western Arctic coast, really light on the east side of the coastline there. And out here in the Bering Sea, pretty windy with that system, anywhere from 50 to 65, maybe 75 knots there out towards Shimian at 2, turning southwest 40 to 45 here into the Alaska Peninsula, diminishing along the southwest coast. 3,000 feet westerlies up to 50 knots there over the Aleutians, southwest 35 to 45, diminishing 20 to 25 as it comes on shore, turning south 35 with that low center up to the north, lighter here over the eastern interior. And for the southeast coast, west-northwest, strongest right along the coast of this elevation. Turbulence-wise, none expected there with that, and moderate chop here, southwest interior, all of the Alaska Peninsula, moving to Kodiak Island, the entire Aleutian chain, occasionally moderate, and also up here over the western Brooks Range Mountains.
The fifth planet from the sun.
Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dehne Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory.
It's that time of year again for viewing my favorite gas giant planet at its biggest and brightest.
That's right, James. On May 9th, Jupiter will be at opposition. That means it will be in a great location for viewing.
What are we talking about? Let's show you.
Jupiter is the largest of all the planets in our sun's family and is the fifth planet from the sun. Earth is, on average, 93 million miles away from the sun, whereas Jupiter's average distance is 484 million miles. Those are pretty big numbers, and because the planets are so far away from each other, astronomers don't often refer to the distances in the solar system using terrestrial units like miles or kilometers. That would be like measuring the distance from your house to the grocery store in inches or centimeters.
Instead, we use the average distance between the Earth and the Sun as our measuring stick. We call that distance an astronomical unit, or AU. So, if we converted our units from miles to AUs, Earth is 1 astronomical unit from the Sun, and Jupiter on average is 5.2 astronomical units from the Sun.
As Jupiter and Earth orbit the Sun, they constantly vary their distance from each other. When Jupiter is at its farthest distance from us and is on the other side of the Sun, as seen from Earth, it can be as far as 6.2 astronomical units away.
However, once every year, Earth and Jupiter line up on the same side of the Sun and are a whole 2 astronomical units closer to each other. Whenever this happens, we say Jupiter is at opposition because Jupiter is opposite the Sun in the sky as seen from Earth.
And when Jupiter is at opposition, it is always at its closest, brightest, and best for viewing. Jupiter will be at opposition this year on Wednesday, May 9th, and only 4.4 astronomical units away. So this makes it great for viewing in a small telescope. Okay, we have our skies set for 11 p.m. any night this week. And if you look towards the east, you'll see Jupiter among the stars of Libra the Scales. On May 9th, Jupiter will be close to Zubin el-Janubi, which is the former southern claw of nearby Scorpius the Scorpion. The other bright star in Libra is Zubin esh-Shamali, the former northern claw of Scorpius.
If you keep an eye on Jupiter as we travel past it, you'll notice it continues to travel westward through Libra, reaching its closest approach to Zubin el-Janubi on June 6th. And then on July 10th, it will pause and then begin traveling eastward again. Then on August 8th, Jupiter will pass close to Zubin el-Janubi again.
No wonder they call the planets wandering stars. The planet Jupiter has been observed in the sky since antiquity. The ancient Romans named it after the king of their gods, whom the Greeks referred to as Zeus.
Babylonian astronomers have records of Jupiter dating back to the 7th century BC. In his book, The Almagest, Greek astronomer Claudius Ptolemy used Jupiter's motion with respect to the Earth to refine his Earth-centered model of the solar system.
By doing this, Ptolemy showed that Jupiter took almost 12 years to complete a circuit of the sky, which we now know is the amount of time it takes Jupiter to orbit the Sun.
In 1610, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei studied Jupiter using a telescope and is credited with discovering the 4 largest moons of Jupiter: Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. The motions of these moons around Jupiter provided Galileo with an example supporting Nicholas Copernicus's view of a sun-centered solar system.
As planets go, Jupiter is enormous. If Jupiter were hollow, you could fit over 1,000 Earths inside it.
Jupiter also spins very fast. Of all the planets in our solar system, Jupiter has the shortest day at only 9.8 hours. This rapid spinning has caused Jupiter to look like an M&M, and you know how much I like M&Ms.
Yes, indeed. So, get outside and gaze upon the king of the planets.
It's easy to do when you remember to keep looking up.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Taking a look at today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot of difference from the last couple of days, really. Sea ice-free water, a little bit of it to the north side of St. Lawrence Island through here, and then a narrow strip down the southwest coast into Kuskokwim Bay. Really, not much left there at all, and then kind of thinning out here north of the Bering Strait area. And that same sort of trend will continue here for the next few days and through the weekend of a gradual melting back of conditions. Onto the coastal water forecast. For the southeast coast, we got northwesterlies, pretty dominant direction here, and speed 25 knots. Small cat advisories all along the coast here, except the north coast, extreme north coast. Westerlies at about 15 up here, 7-foot seas. Northern Canal, south 20, 4-foot seas, northwest at 15, and the seas about 3 feet for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait, northwest 20, and seas 4 feet. Outlook for Saturday, first day of the weekend, not bad at all here for the south coast, anywhere over the Panhandle. Southerly winds at 20 for Northern Canal, 4-foot seas there, about 15, Stevens Passage. 25 knots, a little gusty starting the day out anyway for Clarence Strait, and then along the coast, northwest 20, turn westerly here as you head north. Extreme north coast, southwest 15, 7-foot seas. And for Cook Inlet tomorrow, south winds 25 knots with 7 to 9-foot seas. Small craft advisories also in the forecast for Kachemak Bay with seas up to 10 feet, southwest 30 for the Barrens, and then south to southwest 25 knots here for the North Gulf Coast. Those seas running 7 to 8 feet, southeast at 15 for Prince William Sound with 3-foot seas. And then for the Saturday outlook, east winds at 20 knots, 4-foot seas there for Prince William Sound, southeast 20. For the North Gulf Coast there, the eastern North Gulf Coast, back to the west, a little more southerly here, but the same speed, 8-foot seas. So even though the wind speed's under 25 knots, still small craft advisories for those 8-foot sea heights. And also small crafts for the Barren Islands, southeast 30, looks like the strongest winds, Kachemak Bay, with the highest seas as well, about 11 feet. And south of the Forelands for Cook Inlet, still south 25, seas possibly up to 10 feet. Much lighter to the north, though, southeast at 15, with seas running at about 4 feet. And for the Kodiak Island zones, pretty general, southwest 30 knots about sums it up, seas 10 to 11 feet. And that all the way back to Sitkinak to Castle Cape, call it, southwest 30, 11-foot seas. Then we get into the gales here for the Alaska Peninsula. Southwest 35 on the Pacific side, even stronger. South 40 knots developing here for the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Small craft advisories for Bristol Bay. And Saturday, those come down to south at about 20. Lose the gales, small craft advisory southwest 25 to 30 knots for the peninsula. Seas 11 to 16 feet. 30-knot winds all the way up to Sitkinak. South 30 up the east side of Kodiak Island, Fognak Island, and south 25 there for Shelikof Strait with 10-foot seas. Out in the Aleutians, 40-knot southerlies here coming into the eastern Aleutians there, so a good gale right on across Adak and Atka, south 40 knots, 13 to 16-foot seas, and then falling back to minimum gales there from Kiska on to Shemya. Outlook for Saturday, just under gale force here from Kiska to Shemya. Minimum gales now over toward Adak and Atka, 35 to 40 knots. And then small craft advisories, mostly from the southwest, at 30 knots for the Fox Islands, 12 to 14-foot seas. And for the southwest coast, South of Nunivak Island, we've got a 20 knot southwest breeze blowing into Kuskokwim Bay. North side of the island, lighter winds south 15. Even lighter winds in store for St. Lawrence Island. Barely a breeze at all out of the west at 10 knots, 5-foot seas. East, 25 knots here for St. Matthew Island. And gales, south winds increasing to 35 knots, seas building to 11 feet for the Pervolofs. And for Saturday, southwest 25 here for St. Paul, northeast 25 for St. Matthew Island. Southwest 20 south of Nunivak Island, northerlies 15 to 20 on up to St. Lawrence Island. And for the Beaufort Sea coast, east side here, central and east coast, easterlies 10 to 15, all the way on the west side. And from Cape Beaufort on down to the Strait, southeast at 20. And then for Saturday, very general wind pattern here. Easterlies 20 knots forecast from Demarcation Point all the way over to call it Cape Beaufort, and then from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, east 15, Cape Thompson to Wales, south at 10, with 1-foot seas now showing up there as the ice continues to thin and melt away. For tonight again, this system bringing chance of snow over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta tonight, Norton Sound into the southern Seward Peninsula, mixed of precipitation, Bristol Bay, rain showers, Kodiak, North Gulf Coast, and mixture of showers here over south central Alaska with cloudy skies, drier north of the Alaska Range, and still a chance of some light moisture over the northern Panhandle with that persistent southwest flow there, but drier down toward the south. And then for tomorrow, generally I'd call it mostly cloudy in the north, maybe some sunshine in the south, but generally a dry day, at least in part, for the Panhandle. Better chance of moisture here south central Alaska with that trough. Same thing in the northwest. Snow, rain showers mix there with the next system pushing eastward into the Fox Islands with wind and rain. That moves inland on Saturday, bringing more precipitation into southern Alaska, back to the northwest, mostly in the form of snow up there. Next system driving eastward with wind and rain into the central Aleutians. Thank you so much for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.